Show, and I have such a pleasure to introduce my good friend Dr. Lisa with me today. Olszewski is her last name. She's out of Michigan. She is a chiropractor, but she's also a keto enthusiast and expert. And so I have lots of clients asking questions about keto. And so I wanted to bring her on the show and have her tell us a little bit about the basics. She has done what she calls Keto 101 programs in the past for some folks, and she is also putting on this incredible summit that's coming up that we are going to be talking about shortly. And so welcome, Lisa. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, no problem. I'm honored that you have the time to join us and share with the Junk You Should Know show followers. And I'm just going to take 1 second and thank our sponsor, which is the Change Cave. Many of you guys know I launched the Change Cave last week, and the Change Cave is now open and running on a rolling registration. And so you can get on board anytime, which is really great. And it is, excuse me, a very low price of $23.99 a month. And you get all sorts of great wellness information. We're starting right into a module called Conscious Eating. We roll out a new module every month, and we have some great onboarding exercises for you to do as well, and an incredibly wonderful community of like-minded wellness warriors who are all geared toward getting to their personal wellness objectives and helping support you in yours. So that's the Change Cave. So Dr. Lisa, let's just get right into it. I have lots of folks that are like, I do not understand what this keto is. So if you explain it to someone, what's the definition?
Right? Like I had somebody the other day that was like, paleo keto. Keto is that one where you eat a bunch of protein and fat, right? And I'm like, oh gosh, no, right? So keto, think of it as a low carb, high fat diet, but it's not like lard fat, or I guess but it's not like Crisco fat. It's not your bad fats. It's going to be good fats.
Yes.
But I always tell people it's our body's adaptation to starvation time periods. So even because I'm a big paleo fan too, I've always been like a paleo keto fan. Back in Paleolithic era, you and I both know that there were massive time periods where we would have a lot of food and an overabundance of food. And then we go through a time period where we didn't have a lot of food, of famine. Right. And so it was our body's adaptation to those famine time periods. And so your body can tap into your fat stores to burn that fat, and it will burn ketones. It'll actually go to your liver, make something called ketones. So now you are running on ketones rather than just relying on running on glucose, or what happens when we eat carbohydrates. So breads, pastas, fruits, all that type of stuff break down into glucose. So basically, your body can be fueled on sugar. It can be fueled on fat. When it's fueled on sugar, it breaks down into glucose. When it's fueled on fat, it breaks down into ketones.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. And so why do we as a body want to give preferential treatment to burning our energy as fat and not glucose?
Well, you think a lot of times we've got a lot of, most typical Americans, how many time periods do we really go through much famine? Not really, right? So we got lots of excess fat that we could utilize for fuel. But what's so amazing now is they're starting to look at some of the research with the brain. People always thought the brain only ran on glucose, but it actually works with ketones as well. Different things like Alzheimer's and dementia, they're talking about that as like the new buzzword is type 3 diabetes, talking about the weight, right? So, really, when you see people that are keto adapted, like when they are literally burning fat for fuel, that's when you start hearing that they have such brain clarity, because your brain utilizes ketones. In all honesty, every single part of your body, every organ will utilize ketones. The liver will not, because the liver is what makes ketones.
I see.
So that's why.
Okay, got it. And so when someone says, hey, I'm on a keto diet, can you describe what that is?
Oh, it's going to be different for everybody, right? Some people are literally doing that keto diet of high protein, high fat, and that's what they're running on. And you and I looking at it from a holistic perspective, I'm one that always encourages my patients to choose organic options. A lot of keto people will use a lot of dairy, and we know a lot of fat, toxicity is stored in fat. And so I always tell people, if we're doing a lot of fat, we want to make sure, we're choosing organic choices. Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of dairy, right? I'm a paleo person. And so I'm always teaching people, let's look more towards a paleo keto plan. So it's going to be very similar.
So and do you agree that the reasons that we don't support the whole dairy concept is because of the inflammatory factors and the fact it has so much relationship to irritation of the digestive system and the joints and all that. And like you said, dairy is also, like bad fats, packed with a bunch of crap like hormones and stuff that the dairy has been fed. And so we just have to be very careful about, if you're going to do dairy, what kind, and preferably at a very minimum, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I'll actually even encourage people, if they're going to do dairy, let's look at like goat dairy or that type of stuff as well.
I like that.
So that's where I've been, and following a lower carbohydrate paleo plan, which then falls into a keto, plan that way. So, just minimal fruits, like if they're going to do that, I'll have some of our patients will cycle that way and go into ketosis and get out of ketosis. It's kind of important, especially with cycling females. So that way we have enough carbohydrates. But, with that point is when I'm telling people maximum is 100 grams of carbohydrates.
Okay.
And that, if you've ever counted carbs, it's really hard to get to 100 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
Right.
To stay under it. Yeah. Stay under 100 grams for sure.
Exactly. So most people are typically, when you're really doing a keto plan, they're going to be looking at less than 20 grams of carbohydrates. But with our patients, we would always initially coach people like, let's look at getting people down to 100, and then we go down to less than that 20.
Okay.
And that's when you can really start testing ketone levels if they wanted to do that.
So let me clarify. So at 100, we are not in ketosis, right?
Some people might, right?
Oh.
It all depends on how well fat adapted that person is, like they actually are.
And so if they're not, we keep lowering, and some people have to go as low as even 20 grams a day in order to be in ketosis.
Exactly.
And when we're in ketosis, that's when the fat furnace turns on.
You got it.
And that's what we want. We want to be burning our fat as energy. And that's why so many folks love it as a weight management tool, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, you and I know there are huge benefits apart from weight loss, such as brain function, cellular division, all sorts of healing factors and that kind of thing. But that is one of the benefits, right?
That's the biggest thing that people always think of is fat loss. But then it is so many, and I looked at it just as a healthcare practitioner as the taking out that inflammatory aspect, because so often so many Americans are so inflamed just because of their nutritional habits.
Yeah.
So when you eliminate excess carbohydrates, which is causing so much inflammation in the body, like what else can happen? And we can start seeing some true healing. But there is so much research, and that's what I always tell like the classes that we'll do. I'm like, just go to the internet and Google ketones or ketosis with whatever. Like whatever it is, and you'll be amazed to see the research that is happening right now. And it's not anything new. Like I said, it was happening. It's our body's adaptation to that starvation time period. However, they were testing this back in like the 1800s. There was Banting diet, right? Back in England in the 1800s, this man started losing a bunch of weight by decreasing his carbohydrate. And that's where that went on for a long while. Mm-hmm. And then Bernard McFadden, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's the one that's known for he's the grandfather of the fitness magazines.
Okay.
He had a lot of health, sanitarian places, and his osteopaths on staff started realizing epileptic seizures were doing really well, were being maintained when people would go into a fasting time period. They didn't realize it was, the body's way it was going into ketosis. And so ketosis was known for epileptic seizure management up until they started coming out with the medications. And then it disappeared at that point when, Big Pharma kind of.
So let me ask a question, because you've mentioned the word fasting a few times. And I think what you're saying, because we're going to talk about actual fasting here in a minute, you're talking about glucose fasting, right? Like when you say when somebody is in fasting, you're talking about when they are low enough that they are in fat burning ketosis.
What McFadden, what he was doing, he literally had people doing water fast for several days. That was back late 1800s, 1900s. You're right. And so that was his way of helping people for epilepsy. Okay. So there are sometimes people will do, several day fast. I always, want to work with people one-on-one on that. It's not, I wouldn't encourage anybody just to go out and jump on that, but we'll look at intermittent fasting time periods. Okay. So when when we look at how often we're eating, I think most people understand that when we eat food, our insulin increases, right? Our blood sugar increases, so insulin has to increase. And so if we always have this high up and down of our blood sugar, we want to minimize those swings, those fluctuations with that. And so I always tell people, let's just start first, become a little bit more aware. How often are we putting food into our mouth? Because every time we're doing that, we're either spiking our blood sugar, right? More than likely we're spiking our blood sugar. And so if we start looking at some intermittent fasting time periods of just like shortening the window of how often we're eating our meals, that is going to allow your body to do some healing. Because now you're going to, give that energy that you were going to use to digest meals for, 20 hours out of the day. And now if you're only eating for 12 hours out of the day, you've got an extra 8 hours that your body can do some excess healing.
So so what you're saying is, we used to, for a long time, say, oh, you have to eat every 2 hours. That's going to be a problem. And there are some people that still subscribe to that, and that is fine. But if you are wanting to get into a keto type of lifestyle and you're wanting to get the benefits of the fat burning and all of that, you're saying spread those meals out, get space between, and start to do what is called intermittent fasting. And I think your suggestion has been that the easiest way to do that is, when we sleep, we're fasting anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you recommend about that?
What I tell my patients, stop eating snacks after dinner. When you're done, you're done, right? And then look at whatever time you would have eaten breakfast at and just push it back an hour. So typically most people are done with dinner. A lot of people are done by 6 o'clock at night. So I'm like, see if you can push it till 8 o'clock the next morning, or see if you can push it till 6 o'clock the next morning. And at least just start out with a 12-hour time period where you're not eating. And typically if we're sleeping 8 hours in that time period, that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
The next thing that a lot of people are doing over the course of the last several years, there's this big craze of putting butter and coconut oil in coffee. And people are saying, why are we doing that? Well, when we put fat into the body right at the beginning, you're kind of telling your body in the first thing in the morning, all right, let's just start burning some more fat for fuel. This is what I'm doing right now. So let's do this. But also when you're putting that fat in, if it's literally just the fat in your coffee or in your tea or whatever you're doing, you're not going to spike your insulin. You're not going to spike blood sugar, which in turn will spike insulin. So it just kind of is allowing.
Extends it a little longer.
Yeah. So it's a fat fast at that time period. You're not
and that's what I was, And so what you're describing is, of course, a bulletproof coffee, which a lot of people are still just starting to learn about. And it is an incredible tool. It's so satiating. And so I'm just going to give a quick recipe, and then I want you to tell me if that's right and if you use a similar recipe. So 8 ounces of organically brewed coffee, teaspoon to a tablespoon of grass-fed butter, teaspoon to a tablespoon of medium chain triglycerides, and one of the most common is the bulletproof MCT oil. It's organic, it's well sourced, it's properly refined without a lot of chemical processing, and you have the option to add a little coconut milk or a little hazelnut milk if you want. And then you blend the bejesus out of it, right?
You absolutely do. And the other thing that you can do, Bulletproof has some great raw cacao butter. And so I do a little bit of that in that.
Okay.
And it is amazing because then it's like a mocha, but it's still fat.
Nice.
Right?
Okay.
And the little word of caution that I tell everybody is, and I know, they be saying this over on the Bulletproof blog as well, is you start out with a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of MCT oil. You do not throw a whole tablespoon in.
And why do we do that, Lisa?
Because, so MCT oils are coming from coconuts, right? Coconuts are naturally antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. Most Americans have got toxic guts. So you do that, you're going to have what they call disaster pants. Start out small, because I'll have people say, oh, I've got a gut of steel. And I'm like, don't do it.
And you will get the poopy pants. You will. And
exactly.
So you need to just be careful with that. So the blending emulsifies the fat, so it's a little easier it goes into the small intestine sort of already ready to be absorbed and at least partially broken down. And so it is kind of a really great option. And we use it as a breakfast, not as a support to a breakfast. You in exchange of We want to be really clear about that. So that's good. I love that we talked about that, because that is, I mean, you Google bulletproof coffee and there's 70 million articles on it, and people still aren't quite sure how to make it work right for them or how to use it properly.
Right.
And bulletproof coffee is also a great pre or post workout thing as well. So I love it for that. So will you please tell me, we talked about this, but I want you to recap, because as you know, I lean toward the paleo form of nourishing your body. And so when people go paleo, keto, what is your answer to them when you say, well, like, what's the difference? Why do you want to do one over the other?
Oh my gosh. It's actually, for each person, it's what works best for them.
Yeah,
right.
Good.
Maybe if they are really active, they might need more carbohydrates. So maybe it's a good sweet potato. It's not like going out and pulling down a bunch of grains, you know, and doing gluten for their carbohydrates, but a good sweet potato every once in a while, and you're not going to have massive amounts of carbohydrates in that. And so a lot of times I find people that are pretty super clean paleo are pretty much, they're probably ketogenic to, you know, in all honesty.
That's very true.
Just depending, because a lot of paleo people aren't going to be wolfing down crazy amounts of fruit either. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And if they are, they're choosing like lower glycemic fruits. So they could be, it's really whatever works best. Some people that I talk with really want to help refuel with a good sweet potato after a workout. It's just different. But then I have other people that are really strict keto, and they have some amazing workouts too. So it's really, in all honesty, personal preference.
So let me just recap too. So if someone is like, I don't even know what paleo is, it's dairy-free, legume-free, you know, any grains are out. All of that is out. You eat lean, well-sourced meat and fish. You eat your vegetables, a little bit of fruit, and nuts and seeds. That's paleo. And if you want to take it to the next level, what I always say is keto is paleo, but paleo isn't necessarily keto. If you want to take it to that next level and start to get into some of the benefits you're talking about, is we've got to drop those carbs down, even if they're good carbs, you know, down to that level, so that we push it into fat burning instead of insulin spiking glucose stuff, right? Okay.
Right. And that's when they can start to measure. And that's one of the things, like I said, there are a lot of people that are doing keto, but they're doing crazy amounts of dairy, and like that they would be keto, right? So that's where I just always like to distinguish paleo, keto, and that's where a lot of the big health bloggers that are out there right now, most of them, I think, are talking paleo, keto. Like we're all looking very clean.
For sure. It makes sense. It makes good health sense. Question, what do you recommend as far as how people test whether they are in ketosis?
So there's 3 different ways, right? So what happens is your body will there's 3 different types of ketone bodies that your body will produce. And you can measure those in 3 different ways. So most people realize the urine stick, right? But then what you will find is a lot of people will say, yeah, like I was peeing on a stick and it was showing that I was in ketosis, and then it just stopped and I'm not in ketosis anymore. So what happens when your body is making ketones, it can make beta hydroxybutyrate, it can make acetoacetate, or it can make acetone. Okay,
and those are 3 ketones?
They're your 3 ketone bodies that your body would make. When you pee on the stick, you are measuring acetoacetate. Okay. So at some point, your body's gonna, you know, you're not going to see such results. And so the more of, like, I always tell people, the better ways to really test, the most efficient or most accurate way would be through blood. And so you can buy the ketone meters, and that's where you just prick your finger, just like you're testing blood sugar. So I'll even do that, test my blood sugar first thing in the morning, see where I'm at with fasting, see what my ketone levels are with fasting. And you can just do that. There's 2 different strips. You just test them. The one drawback on that are the actual testing strips for the blood meters are expensive. They're about $1 a strip, right? So that's testing your beta hydroxybutyrate. The other way to test is through breath. And so you can buy these little breath meters that will test to see your levels, and that's testing acetone. So that way you can see 3 different ways on ketone numbers. So
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Really picky people like me, I love kind of see where I'm at on all of that. And then I'll test throughout the day. Like, what did that meal do? So certain things like MCT oil will go to the liver, and your body produces ketones with that. So it's really cool for me to say, okay, this is where I was before my coffee. Now where am I? Right?
Yeah.
So
That's cool. That's really interesting. Lisa, you have a awesome Keto 101 summit coming up with over 30 speakers, correct? Over 30 presenters?
Oh my gosh, just continues to grow. Right now we're confirmed over 22, but
Okay.
we're looking at over 30.
Well,
So yeah.
and I'm saying over 30 because we actually are pre-recording the show and it's a few weeks away. And when this show airs, the event is only going to be a week away.
True.
It's next week. It's April 23rd and 4th.
24th, 25th, 26th.
That's right. 24th, 5th, and 6th. And yours truly is going to be a presenter. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm very honored because some of the other lineup is insane who you got to show up for this thing. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. We've got Maria Emmerich here. We've got JJ Virgin has signed on.
So great.
From the Nourished Caveman, which is another paleo keto blogger. We've got Keto Carol, who's another blogger. And then we've just got some amazing doctors and specialists out there. Dr. Andy Campanelli she's a naturopath, a hormone expert, a keto expert.
Fantastic.
Dr. Heather Cardin. It's amazing to see who signed on.
Yeah, that's so great. And so if any of you who are watching this are really interested in a keto lifestyle, then this summit is an absolute must. And
yes.
I've got, I have the link here. Let me just bring that up.
Perfect.
And, yeah, it's going to be wonderful. And so just go to keto101summit.com and you can register there for it. And it's a 3-day event and it's so many speakers, so many topics. It'll be tough to get through them all, but the content is going to be so great. And I know I am offering a couple little free gifts to anybody who registers. I know most of the speakers are probably going to have some kind of special thing for anybody who registers. So that's also an added draw. So that's super cool. And I'm so happy you're putting that on because it is something that people are asking about a lot.
It is. So many people. They said within the last 2 years, keto has taken over Google searches for diets over paleo. To be honest.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
well, and I know you have been to this conference before. I don't think you went to Cal Jam this year, right?
No, I was there. Yeah.
Oh, you were there. Oh, no, of course you were. Hello. The speakers Mercola was talking about it and Josh Axe was heavy about it. And so some of the big leaders in nutrition are really starting to see the science behind disease prevention and longevity and cancer fighting and a lot of different things. And I am not knowledgeable enough to know one way or the other, but I love that they're talking about it and that I can continue to learn about it. And then you're putting out such a great event for me to learn more as well.
Yep. It is so great. And it's been so exciting to have so many amazing speakers just say, yes, absolutely. Let's share some information. Yeah. So, it is for everybody and it's going to be, we'll have some very basic presentations and some just science. Like my presentation is going to be the effects of sugar on the brain, because I think so many people have no idea what's happening within like physically with the brain when we consume sugar. So we're going to go through that stuff and then we'll have I'm just so excited about it. And
That's
I'm
great.
so fortunate.
That's great.
So many amazing speakers.
So wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Lisa. And I'm just, the link is there, guys. We'll put it down in the comments below. But I know I got asked by a lot of followers of the Junk Show that they wanted to know about keto. What are the main things they wanted to know about keto? And so just in parting, you and I talked before about like, what are the 3 takeaways for keto? Like if I'm so not keto right now and I want to start, what are the 3 things? And we've mentioned a couple. What do I do, doctor?
My basic thing I love teaching people are just small changes, small sustainable changes. So first thing I want people to do is just become aware. How often are you putting food in your mouth? How often are you changing your blood sugar? Is it spiking? Is like 12 times a day? Are we grazing throughout the day? Just become aware. And then the second thing is start to open up your windows of fasting. So like we spoke about with that. I'm going to say one thing for women, especially cycling women, you don't want to intermittent fast like huge amounts of time, 7 days a week, months on end. We want to make sure, maybe 3 to 5 days a week that you're doing some intermittent fasting, and then other days that you do eat breakfast, like you just can play around with that.
Yeah.
And then start adding in good quality, healthy fats, things like avocados, things like coconut oil, your good nuts and seeds, and adding those in. When we say we want healthy fats, it doesn't mean go and get a tub of Crisco. That's not
No.
what you're doing. So
But
good, healthy fats.
yeah, and it does people, like one of the things I do regularly is I get really well-sourced, great bacon, and I use that fat in other cooking, and people are like, and it's like, no, you want to do that. You want to continue to put those even, really well-raised animal fat into your body is perfectly acceptable as well.
Yes.
And so I love that. Those are 3 actionable things the listeners can do. And Dr. Lisa, will you be available to just check out some comments below and weigh in where people have questions and continue the conversation, right?
Absolutely. I am here to help.
That's great. Well, thank you so much and good luck on the summit. I can't wait to be a part of it. And I know we'll hear more from you. Thank you for being on the Junk You Should Know show. And we'll see you again soon. Okay, Lisa?
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, you are welcome. Thank you.